All right, let's talk about Sansa 3. Sansa 3 is almost the definition of a filler chapter. It has two specific functions. And otherwise it is a very useless thing. Not that it's unenjoyable. It isn't. But it is a almost all summary of the previous chapter, Eddard 11. And Sansa 3 exists. Maybe you could give it a third, but the primary reason Sansa 3 exists is to give Ned a Eureka moment. So he gets his Eureka moment where he solves the super sleuth figuring out that Joffrey is a bastard and not Robert's in this chapter, in this moment. So it's primarily that. That is the function of the Sansa chapter. But it couldn't be done from... George doesn't do it from Ned's point of view. Probably because he had just done a Ned chapter, and the next chapter is a Ned chapter, and the action is very Ned focused. In fact, the chapters right now go Ned, Sansa, Ned, Daenerys, Ned. It's all Ned here. And it's been so much Ned in the story. This is Sansa 3, and Ned's had 11 chapters at this point. Daenerys has had, I think she's gearing up. Daenerys has had 4. She's gearing up to have 5. So it's a very Ned-focused story. And he gives the Eureka moment to Sansa in the Sansa story. And so that's number one. Number two is, as I was explaining, there's just way too much Ned. He needs some break from Ned. And so he puts in this Sansa chapter. Then you could argue that maybe the third reason is that it's just giving face time to Sansa. Like, Sansa's only had 2 chapters, so he throws her this chapter, which is, for the most part, absolutely useless. It is a summary of previous stuff. Not that it doesn't have some good lines and some good descriptions. I mean, the famous Littlefinger line, "Life is not a song," it comes from this. But let's get into it. It's a short chapter. And as I said, there's not much to it. Sansa. "He wouldn't send Sir Loras," Sansa told Jane Poole that night as they shared a cold supper by lamplight. "I think it was because of his leg." Lord Eddard had taken his supper in his bedchamber with Alan, Harwin, and Van Poole. Again, Alan is he gets sent off with the Proto Brotherhood without banners. Harwin gets sent off with the Proto Brotherhood without banners. So they seem to be having some sort of last supper to talk about what they're going to do on their mission. Van Poole is, his steward. The better to rest his broken leg, and Septim Mordain had complained of sore feet after standing in the gallery all day. Arya was supposed to join them, but she was late coming back from her dancing lesson. "His leg," Jane said uncertainly. She was a pretty, dark-haired girl of Sansa's own age. "Did Loras hurt his leg?" "Not his leg," Sansa said, nimbling delicately at a chicken leg. "Father's leg, silly. It hurts him ever so much. It makes him cross. Otherwise, he would have been certain to send. I'm certain he would have sent Sir Loras." Her father's decision still bewildered her. When the Knight of Flowers had spoken up, she'd been sure he was about to see one of old Nan's stories come to life. Sir Gregor was the monster, and Sir Loras the true hero who would slay him. He even looked a true hero, so slim and beautiful, with golden roses about his slender waist and a rich brown hair tumbling down into his eyes. Again, George writes Sansa amateurishly. One thing they kind of teach in modern creative writing is that you don't want to overuse. They tell you not to use adverbs at all, but not to overuse adjectives. And so, if you look at this sentence, for example, he even looked a true hero, so slim and beautiful, with golden roses about his slender waist, with his rich brown hair tumbling down into his eyes. It's just there's so much description over and over with Sansa that he writes her like how a young person would write fiction, which makes it seem like it's a young person. It's very well done. in creating Sansa's voice. But it is kind of also retreading. We had this. We had Sansa's view in Sansa 1 and Sansa 2 about how she sees the world and how she thinks the world's a song. And father had refused him. It upset her more than she could tell. She had said as much to Septa Mordane as they descended the stairs from the gallery, but Septa had only told her that it was not her place to question her Lord Father's decisions. That was when Lord Baelish had to say, "Oh, I don't know, Septa. Some of her Lord Father's decisions could do with a bit of questioning. The young lady is as wise as she is lovely." He made a sweeping bow to Sansa, so deep she was not quite sure if she was being complimented or mocked. I know a lot of people do question Ned's decision. Had he sent Loras would have been probably killed, and the Tyrells would be supporting the Starks, and it would be a big deal. It would have driven a big wedge between the Tyrells and the Lannisters. And so, in a Machiavellian sense, the probably sending Loras would have been the right decision. If you're really talking about, winning against Tywin, but Ned was thinking more of bringing justice and dispensing justice and having that justice be right. And Loras was seeking revenge, and he was far too young. And Ned was not thinking that Robert was going to die on his hunt and things like that. So, you can't really Monday morning quarterback Ned's decision here. Septa Mordane had been very upset to realize that Peter Baelish had overheard them. "The girl was just talking, my lord," she said. "Foolish chatter. She meant nothing by the comment." Lord Baelish stroked his little pointed beard and said, "Nothing? Tell me, child, why would you have sent Loras?" Sansa had no choice but to explain about heroes and monsters. The king's counselor smiled. "Well, those aren't the reasons I'd have given, but..." He touched her cheek, his thumb lightly tracing the line of a cheekbone. "Life's not a song, sweetling. You may learn that one day to your sorrow." Now, I do think this is very interesting in that Ned is surrounded by people that would have sent Loras. Sansa would have sent Loras. It's very clear that Littlefinger would have sent Loras. Varys would have sent Loras. All of them kind of see it as an obvious decision. And in that situation, it seems like the probable logical situation that a normal person would have sent Loras. Why would Tywin have done the action knowing that it would have resulted in Loras getting sent? It takes real knowledge of who Ned is, which Tywin does not have, to know that Ned wouldn't have sent, that he would have gone and not sent Loras. Well, every other person is like, well, sending Loras is the obvious thing to do. It kind of messes with the whole Tywin master plan that Harwin kind of gives in A Storm of Swords, that everybody thinks that the obvious move is sending Loras. So why wouldn't Tywin suspect that the obvious move was sending Loras? In a sense, Tywin's just acting crazily, and somehow it works out for him. Well, actually, it doesn't, because he doesn't send Ned. Beric Dondarrion gets sent, and so it's neither outcome comes. I guess Tywin wanted Ned to go, impossibly, because there's the whole issue of how did he know that Robert wouldn't be there, and Ned would have, if he knew that Robert wasn't going to be there, he would have known that Ned had a broken leg and all of that. But if Harwin is correct that he wanted Ned to be sent out, why wouldn't he have thought of Loras being sent, or being brought along? Sansa did not like telling all that to Jane, however. It made her uneasy just to think back on it. "Life is not a song, sweetling. You may learn that one day to your sorrow." This is a very, very oft-quoted line from Littlefinger. It's a great one. Sansa did not feel like telling that all to Jane, however, it made her uneasy just to think back on it. "Sir Ilyn's the king's justice, not Sir Loras," Jane said. "Lord Eddard should have sent him." Another interesting thing, that Jane Poole has the same mind as Varys in that situation. Sansa shuddered. Every time she looked at Sir Ilan Payne, she shivered. He made her feel as though something dead was slithering over her naked skin. Sir Ilan's almost a second monster. I'm glad Father did not pick him. Lord Beric is as much of a hero as Sir Loras. He's so brave and gallant. I suppose, Sansa said doubtfully. Beric Dondarrion was handsome enough, but he was awfully old, almost 22. The Knight of Flowers would have been much better. Of course, Jane had been in love with Sir Beric ever since she had first glimpsed him in the lists. Sansa thought she was being silly. Jane was only a steward's daughter after all, and no matter how much she'd mooned after him, Lord Beric would never look at someone so far beneath him, even if she hadn't been half his age. Yeah, so it's very clear that Sansa is going almost cartoonishly with the system of good-looking people are good, bad-looking people are evil. Before she also cartoonishly thinks, kings and princes are good, and everybody else and lower class people are evil. But it's so over the top here that, oh yeah, well, Loras is good because he's good looking and he should have been sent. And these other people are monsters. Ilan is ugly. He's a monster, so it's very Disney, classic Disney movies. Cinderella is good. Wicked stepsisters are ugly. Kind of Prince Charming is handsome. It would have been unkind to say so, however. So Sansa took a sip of milk and changed the subject. I had a dream that Joffrey would be the one to take the White Hart, she said. It had been more of a wish, actually, but it sounded better to call it a dream. Everyone knew that dreams were prophetic. White Harts were supposed to be very rare and magical, and in her heart she knew her gallant prince was worthier than his drunken father. So White Harts are historically in Europe considered very lucky things of legends. They appear a few times in the Arthurian legends. All over. This is a very classic kind of thing, the White Hart. So George is borrowing from kind of general medieval literature, and the fact that Sansa buys into all of that and buys into the classic tales is you're supposed to be critical of it, like how naive this woman is. We're supposed to be naive. This isn't a classic medieval tale. And I mean, Littlefinger beats us over the head with it right here. Life is not a song, sweet lang. I don't think there is a chapter where George is so direct in his message that this is not a classic fantasy tale. Classic fantasy tales are bullshit. Sansa's an idiot. Littlefinger straight up tells us this. Look at how idiotic she is than this. I think Sansa III is pretty direct in his beliefs there. What's also kind of funny is that everyone knew that dreams were prophetic. Ironically, how obsessed the fandom is with prophetic dreams and prophetic dreams coming true and things like that. When George R.R. Martin is specifically berating that attitude, that this is not a classic tale. Stop thinking it. Life is not a classic tale. A dream, truly. Did Prince Joffrey just go up to it and touch it with his bare hand and do it no harm? So here it seems to be that in the story, in the Westeros history at least, the whatever magical prince or whatever hero, the story would never hurt a magical beast and therefore would touch it. There's so many different European legends with regards to the white stag that it's difficult to say if this comes from one specifically. I don't know if there is a specific one with where someone doesn't hurt the white stag. The white stag can mean a lot of different things. I mean, it's so broad and so widespread in European history that it means purity, it means harbinger of doom, it means, times of change, it means starting a hero on a quest. It can literally mean anything because it's so widespread. But nonetheless, I think here in Westeros, you're not supposed to hurt it. But of course, Prince Joffrey, of course, loves the killing thing. So I think this is kind of a joke here that Sansa thinks it's out of a song because she's trying to make everything fit in her mind. And Jane Poole's like, what are you talking about? Is Joffrey gonna not kill it? Because that would be out of a song. And so Sansa's like, no, no, Sansa says, he shot it with a golden arrow and brought it back for me. In the songs, the knights never killed magical beasts. They just went up to them and touched them and did them no harm. But she knew Joffrey liked hunting, especially the killing part. See, even she is aware of the sick, sadistic aspect of it, but she's twisting it around. Only animals, though. Sansa was certain her prince had no part in murdering Jory or those other poor men that had been his wicked uncle, the Kingslayer. She knew her father was still angry about all that. It wasn't fair to blame Joff. That would be like blaming her for something that Arya had done. This is, again, twisted joke because obviously Joffrey was responsible for Micah's death, and here she's somehow blaming it on Arya. So you can see Sansa's mental gymnastics here. I saw your sister this afternoon, Jane blurted out, as if she'd been reading Sansa's thoughts. She was walking through the stables on her hands. Why would she do a thing like that? I'm sure I don't know why Arya does anything. Sansa hated stables, smelly places full of manure and flies. Even when she went riding, she liked the boy to saddle the horse and bring it to her in the yard. Do you want to hear about the court or not? I wonder if she meant Hodor, but she just, when she says she liked the boy to saddle the horse, or if it's just anybody, any stable boy. Do you want to hear about the court or not? I do, Jane said. There was a black brother, Sansa said, begging men for the wall, only he was kind of old and smelly. She hadn't liked that at all. She always had imagined the Night's Watch to have been men like Uncle Benjen. This is, of course, Yoren. I guess Yoren's been in town for a while. I suppose Yoren couldn't beg. Oh, that's interesting, though. Yoren's been in town from before Ned was injured. And then Ned broke his leg and was out for days, 10 days. And Yoren decided not to request men from the king or whoever would be sitting and receiving people, and waits for Ned because he thinks Ned was probably going to give him more men. So, or he's sticking around and spying. But that's clever that Yoren would have stuck around because he knew he would get a better response from Ned for men. In the songs, they were called the Black Knights of the Wall. Has that ever been used before? The Black Knights of the Wall? That needs to come back. And the Black Knights of the Wall. I don't think we've... No, that's... Black Knights of the Wall is never used again. That's... What a very interesting name for the Night's Watch that's never used. The Black Knights of the Wall. Man. In the songs, they were called the Black Knights of the Wall. But this man had been crookback and hideous, and he looked as though he might have lice. If this was what the Night's Watch was truly like, she felt sorry for her bastard brother, felt sorry for her bastard half brother John. Father asked if some people, because it was in the show, they really and there is a specific mention of Sansa arguing with Arya about this, that, oh, Sansa's the one that calls Jon her half-brother. No, everybody calls him his half-brother, except for Arya. Bran specifically always calls Jon his half-brother. Robb, half-brother. It's Theon talks about him as a half-brother. It's only Arya that just refers to him as brother. So Sansa's not unique. Maybe throwing bastard in together there is a bit much, but yeah. But everybody else calls Jon half-brother. Father asked if there were any knights in the hall who would do the honor to their houses by taking the black, but no one came forward. So he gave this Yoren his pick of the king's dungeons and sent him on his way. And later these two brothers came before him, free riders from... So Yoren getting his pick of the dungeons, he's going to be picking up Jock and Rorg and Biter from this. Not necessarily if George has the idea at this point, but he's getting those guys are going to be down in the dungeons. Why? No one knows. And later, these two brothers came before him, free riders from the Dornish marches, and pledged their swords to the service of the king. Father accepted their oaths. These guys, never mentioned again. We have no idea what this is all about. Were these two brothers sent off with the Brotherhood Without Banners? Don't know. Were they accepted into what? Were they accepted into some other service for the king? We don't know. But they're never mentioned again. It's so weird. Like, I guess it's just like a random happening. Two brothers from Dornish marches. Some people, because the Dornish marches are rarely mentioned, and Angai the Archer is from the Dornish marches, some people wonder if perhaps one of the brothers was Angai, and that also fills the plot hole of why is Angai with the Brotherhood Without Banners. Like, Angai the Archer right now is living it up at a brothel, and he has no known connection to Beric Dondarrion or Thoros of Myr or any of those other houses. So like, why Angai ends up in the Brotherhood Without Banners is a mystery. And here, two free riders from the Dornish marches pledged their service. So some people wonder, okay, we can plug that plot hole, or not exactly a plot hole, but plug that explanation of why Angai is gone, is with the Brotherhood with this line. But it doesn't really work, because Angai's an archer. Why would he be pledging his sword? Where's this brother? Also, Ned specifically asked Angai if he wanted a job, and Angai refused him. And you'd think if Angai came back and was like, actually, I'll take that job, it would be mentioned. Also, Angai's freaking famous. He won the tourney. Like, Sansa knows who he is. She would have mentioned, oh, the guy who won the tourney pledged his sword. Like, he's famous. He's a big deal. So no, these two brothers are not Angai. So we still have no explanation on why Angai the Archer ends up with the Brotherhood Without Banners, or who these brothers are, who these free riders are. They are never mentioned again. But, fun stuff. Jane yawned. Are there any lemon cakes? Sansa did not like being interrupted. But she had to admit, lemon cakes sounded more interesting than most of what had gone on in the throne room. Let's see, she said. The kitchen yielded no lemon cakes, but they did find half of a cold strawberry pie that was almost as good. They ate it on the tower steps, giggling and gossiping and sharing secrets, and Sansa went to bed that night feeling almost as wicked as Arya. The next morning she awoke before first light and crept sleepily into her window to watch Lord Beric form up his men. They rode out as dawn was breaking over the city, with 3 banners going before them. The crowned stag of the king flew from the high staff, the direwolf of Stark, and Lord Beric's own forked lightning standard from shorter poles. It was all so exciting, the song come to life, the clatter of swords, the flicker of torchlight, banners dancing in the wind, horses snorting and whinnying, the golden glow of sunrise slanting through the bars of the portcullis as it jerked upward. The Winterfell men looked especially fine in their silvery mail and long gray cloaks. Alan carried the Stark banner. Again, we never really find out what happened to Alan. He survives the Mummer's Ford and then dies later, at least according to the accusations against the Hound. When she saw him rein in beside the Lord Beric to exchange words, it made Sansa feel ever so proud. Alan was handsomer than Jory had been. He was going to be a knight one day. You see, it's so blatant. Like, oh, Alan is good looking, therefore he's better than Jory. You know, there's a semicolon there. Alan was handsomer than Jory. Semicolon, these are related thoughts. He was going to be a knight one day. Because being a knight is all about being handsome. Sansa's, I think, has gotten dumber since Sansa 1 and 2. This might be the dumbest this might be the nadir of Sansa's dumbness, is this chapter. The Tower of the Hand seemed so empty after they left that Sansa was even pleased to see Arya when she went down to break her fast. Where is everyone? Her sister wanted to know when she ripped the skin from a blood orange. Did father send them to hunt down Jaime Lannister? Sansa sighed. They rode with Beric Dondarrion to behead Sir Gregor Clegane. She turned to Septa Mordane, who was eating porridge with a wooden spoon. Septa, will Lord Beric spike Sir Gregor's head on his own gate or bring it back here for the king? She and Jane Poole had been arguing over that last night. The Septa was horror-struck. A lady does not discuss such things over her porridge. Where are your courtesies, Sansa? I swear, of late, you've been as nearly as bad as your sister. And what did Gregor do? Arya asked. He burned down a holdfast and murdered a lot of people, women and children too. Arya screwed up her face in a scowl. Jaime Lannister murdered Jory and Heward and Weil, and the Hound murdered Micah. Somebody should have beheaded them too. Somebody should have beheaded them. It's not the same, Sansa said. The Hound, and Arya makes a good point here. Okay, that why is one person getting justice when all these other murders happen too? And in truth, like if the mountain is being ordered by somebody, it's really the person above who is guilty. It's not the same, Sansa said. The Hound is Joffrey's sworn shield. Your butcher boy attacked the prince. Liar, Arya said. Her hands clenched the bloody orange so hard that red juice oozed between her fingers. Go ahead and call me names all you want, Sansa said airily. You won't dare when I'm married to Joffrey. You'll have to bow to me and call me your grace. She shrieked as Arya flung the orange across the table. It caught her in the middle of the forehead with a wet squish and plopped down into her lap. So, as you can see, this is so far still just very much retread. We're retreading Sansa and Arya's dispute. Nothing's changed. We're reestablishing Sansa's ridiculous view of the world, that life is a song, and that good people are good looking and bad people are bad looking. And we rehashed the court scene from Eddard 11, but this is just all filler. You have juice on your face, your grace, Arya said. It was running down her nose and stinging her eyes. Sansa wiped it away with a napkin. When she saw the fruit in her lap, when she saw what the fruit in her lap had done to her beautiful ivory silk dress, she shrieked again. You're horrible! She shrieked at her sister. They should have killed you instead of Lady. Septa Mordane came lurching to her feet. Your lord father will hear of this. Go to your chambers at once. Of course, in Feast for Crows, there is a discussion in the Jaime chapters of whether or not Arya would have been killed. Jaime kind of, even though Cersei doesn't order the death of Arya, Jaime assumes it, which is also kind of weird because it's like a child, and supposedly Cersei's against the killing of children, but that, and he kind of says like, oh, had he come across Arya first, he would have killed her, which is a very kind of interesting, weird, chapter in Feast where he talks about this. Me too? Tears welled in Sansa's eyes. That's not fair. This matter is not a subject to discussion. Go! Sansa stalked away with her head up. She was to be a queen, and queens did not cry. At least not where people could see. What's also interesting is we know in the original outline that Sansa was supposed to side with the Lannisters and eventually have Joffrey's child and, continue on a path against her family. And that's just not how things go. But, there does seem to be seeds of that path here. When she reached her bedchamber, she barred the door and took off her dress. The blood orange had left a blotchy red stain on the silk. I hate her. Yeah, also there's a clear joke here about her looking like she's had her period or broken her moon blood, because the blood from the blood orange is on her crotch. And so that is a clear kind of joke being made here, that it looks like she's become a woman, in either a fertility sense or in a sexuality sense. I hate her, she screamed. She balled up the dress and flung it into the cold hearth on top of the ashes of last night's fire, which is what she does with the, if you remember, when she does have her menstruation, she throws it into the fire, throws it into the hearth the same way. When she saw that stain had bled through her underskirt, she began to sob despite herself. Again, it's just very clear. She ripped off her clothes wildly, threw herself into bed, and cried herself back to sleep. It was midday when Septim Ordain knocked upon her door. Sansa, your Lord Father will see you now. Sansa sat up. Lady, she whispered. For a moment, it was as if the direwolf was there in the room, looking at her with her golden eyes, sad and knowing. She had been dreaming, she realized. Lady was with her, and they were running together. And trying to remember was like trying to catch the rain with her fingers. The dream faded, and Lady was dead again. Yeah, this is a really fascinating thing. This is probably the only place where Sansa has a wolf dream. She has dreams. Sansa has prophetic dreams here and there throughout the story, mainly in A Game of Thrones. But she has a wolf dream here. This is the only wolf dream she ever has. But of course, Lady's dead. So how is she having a wolf dream? Right? For a moment there, she says, Lady, she whispered. For a moment, it was as if the direwolf was there in the room, looking at her with those golden eyes, sad and knowing. She had been dreaming, she realized. Lady was with her, and they were running together. And trying to remember was like trying to catch the rain with her fingers. The dream faded, and Lady was dead again. So she has this dream. She's asleep in the bed. She's waking up, and she has a dream of Lady. She has a wolf dream. Sansa, the rap came again sharply. Do you hear me? Yes, Septa, she called out. Might I have a moment to dress, please? Her eyes were red from crying, but she did not. But she did her best to make herself beautiful. Lord Eddard was bent over a huge leather-bound book when Septim Ordain marched her into the solar, his plaster-wrapped legs stiff beneath the table. Come here, Sansa, he said, not unkindly, when the Septa had gone for her sister. Sit beside me. He closed the book. Septim Ordain returned with Arya, squirming in her grasp. Sansa had put on a lovely pale green damask gown and a look of remorse, but her sister was still wearing the ratty leathers and rough sponge she'd worn at breakfast. Here's the other one, the Septa announced. My thanks, Septim Ordain. I've talked to my daughters alone, if you'd be so kind. The Septa bowed and left. Arya started it, Septa said quickly, anxious to have the first word. She called me a liar and threw an orange at me and spoiled my dress, the ivory silk, the one Queen Cersei gave me when I was betrothed to Prince Joffrey. She hates that I'm going to marry the prince. She tries to spoil everything, Father. You can't stand for anything to be beautiful or nice or splendid. Enough, Sansa. Lord Eddard's voice was sharp with impatience. Arya raised her eyes. I'm sorry, Father, I was wrong, and I beg my sister's forgiveness. Sansa was so startled for that moment she was speechless. Finally, she found her voice. What about my dress? Maybe I could wash it, Arya said doubtfully. Washing won't do any good, Sansa said. Not if you scrubbed all day and night. The silk is ruined. Then I'll make you a new one, Arya said. Sansa threw back her head in disdain. You couldn't sew a dress dress fit to clean a pigsty. Their father sighed. I did not call you here to talk of dresses. I'm sending you both back to Winterfell. For a second time, Sansa found herself too stunned for words. She felt her eyes growing moist again. You can't, Arya said. Please, father, Sansa managed at last. Please don't. Eddard Stark favored his daughters with a tired smile. At last we found something you agree on. I didn't do anything wrong, Sansa pleaded with him. I don't want to go back. She loved King's Landing, the pageantry of the court, the high lords and ladies in their velvets and silks and gemstones, the great city with all its people. The tournaments had been the most magical time in her whole life, and there was so much she had not seen yet, harvest feasts and masked balls and mummers' shows. She could not bear the thought of losing it all. Send Arya away. She started it, father, I swear it. I'll be good, you'll see. Just let me stay, and I promise I'll be fine and noble and courteous as the queen. Ooh. Worst thing to say. Father's mouth twitched strangely. Sansa, I'm not sending you away for fighting, though the gods know I'm sick of you two squabbling. I want you back in Winterfell for your own safety. 3 of my men were cut down like dogs, not a league from where we sit. And what does Robert do? He goes hunting. Arya chewed at her lips in that disgusting way she had. Can we take Syrio back with us? Who cares about your stupid dancing master? Sansa flared. Father, I only just now remembered. I can't go away. I'm to marry Prince Joffrey. She tried to smile bravely for him. I love him, father. I truly do. And this is huge. I love him as much as Queen Nerys loved Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight, as much as Jonquil loved Sir Florian. I want to be his queen and have his babies. So, I know I've discussed in the past that it's a bit much of a jump that Ned thinks about the incest situation when it comes to Cersei and Jaime. That realizing that Cersei's kids are bastards is one thing, but that he should immediately assume that it could be anybody at court that has access to Cersei, any of the other Kingsguard, anybody else, a serving man, anybody that she could possibly be around. The only thing that his book proves is that that the seed is strong, Baratheon genes take precedent over Lannister genes, and that the kid should come out with black hair. That is the only thing, and that he jumps to the conclusion of incest and why. Now, and thus there's strange theories about like Starkcest, and there was incest in his past. I will say that this is the one piece of evidence that perhaps supports the idea that he could be thinking about incest, is that Sansa is the one that primes him with thinking about incest before his Eureka moment. And it's still a bit much, like why he wouldn't assume anybody else, and like what evidence does he have that it's Jaime's? But the story of Queen Nerys and Prince Aemon is a weird one. Nerys and Aemon are brother and sister, and it's never explicitly said. And he defends her against charges of adultery at some point. I don't know if at this point that's established in their story, but nonetheless, the idea that these are Targaryens and that there is love between them. And what's very strange is I don't think the classic stories, say romantic love, but Sansa is clearly placing that love in sandwiched between incidences of romantic love. She's talking about she loves Joffrey and wants to marry him romantically. She is romantically smitten by him. And then she mentions Jonquil and Florian. This is a romantic situation here. Now, Queen Nerys and Prince Aemon, that should be fraternal, it should be fraternal love, but you can, if you read between the lines, you can assume that there's incestual love. Like, if you're talking about a brother and sister loving each other so much, like more than, we all love our brothers and sisters, right? But like when somebody's like, oh, but I love my brother and sister, I love them more. I love them so much. The love for my sibling is of the ages. People don't talk about sibling love with that degree of intensity and passion. They talk about romantic love with that degree of intensity and passion. And so the incest is introduced here. It's, if we, because it's because it's two Targaryens and you're talking about intense love between a brother and a sister. But that's not the Eureka moment yet. Sweet one, her father said gently, listen to me. When you're old enough, I will make you a match with a high lord who's worthy of you. Someone brave and gentle and strong. This match with Joffrey was a terrible mistake. The boy is no Prince Aemon. You must believe me. So now he's thinking about Prince Aemon, the Dragon Knight. He is. Sansa insisted, I don't want someone brave and gentle. I want him. We'll be ever so happy. Just like in the songs, you'll see. I'll give him a son with golden hair. And one day he'll be the king of all the realm, the greatest king that ever was, as brave as the wolf and as proud as the lion. Arya made a face. Not if Joffrey's his father. He's a liar and a craven in any way. Anyhow, he's a stag, not a lion. Sansa felt tears in her eyes. He's not the least bit like that drunken king. She screamed at her sister, forgetting herself in the grief. And here is the Eureka. Mind blown. I've been staring at this book all day. Touching babies' hair at brothels. And father looked at her strangely. Gods, he swore softly, out of the mouth of babes. Mind blown. He's nothing like the drunken queen, the love of Prince Aemon and Queen Nerys. Specifically a queen and the Kingsguard. This is obviously supposed to sound like Lancelot, the story of Lancelot and Guinevere, but and so we're taking that, but if they're brother and sister, and then his Eureka moment happens. Gods, he swore softly, out of the mouth of babes. He shouted for Septa Mordane. To the girls he said, I'm not looking for a fast trading galley to take you home yet. These days the sea is safer than the King's Road. He said to the girls he said, I'm looking for a fast trading galley to take you home. These days the sea is safer than the King's Road. You will sail as soon as I find a proper ship with Septa Mordane and a complement of guards, and yes, with Syrio Farrell if he agrees to enter my service. But say nothing of this. It's better if no one knows of our plans. We'll talk again tomorrow. Yeah, Sansa cried as Septa Mordane marched them down the steps. They were going. Now, some people wonder that there's some discussion of whether or not he says no one talk about this, and people wonder if does Sansa out her family? Does it matter? And it's like, no, like Ned outs himself. He outs himself to Cersei. Like Sansa's actions don't really make any difference at all. But it's it becomes something in the show later, but it's really nothing here. Sansa cried as Septa Mordane marched them down the steps. They were going to take it all away, the tournaments and the court and her prince, everything. They were going to send her back to the bleak gray walls of Winterfell and lock her up forever. Her life was over before it had begun. Stop that weeping, child, Septa Mordane said sternly. I'm certain your lord father knows what's best for you. It won't be so bad, Sansa, Arya said. We're going to sail on a galley. It'll be an adventure. And then we'll be with Bran and Robb again, and Old Nan and Hodor and the rest. She touched her arm. Hodor, Sansa yelled. You ought to marry Hodor. You're just like him, stupid and hairy and ugly. She I guess it was Hodor, because she talks about the boy, bring it out. She couldn't even mention his name, and here she mentions his name. She wrenched away from the sister's hand, stormed into her bedchamber, and barred the door behind her. Ah, Hodor. Yeah, I mean, as useless as this chapter is, it is fun. I mean, it's always fun being in Sansa's crazy mind. Sansa's crazy mind is ridiculous, and it involves Arya throwing oranges at people and Sansa screaming about Hodor and stuff. I mean, it's a fun little chapter, but it is here just to fill the space between another edited chapter. But there it is. There's Sansa 3. Sansa almost regresses. Her character regresses. It's ridiculous. It's a full rehash of what we've had before. It's there for one purpose, the Eureka moment, and there it is. And maybe the incest was seeded right there with the aim of the Dragon Knight story. So there it is. All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.